retirement? Already there? Are you working with a financial advisor but wonder if you could be doing better? Stay with us.
Welcome to Lean to the Left, home of no-holds-barred commentary, plus interviews with fascinating people, some of them top experts, others simply with interesting stories to tell. You'll never know who'll show up at Lean to the Left. Now here's your host, Bob Gaddy.
Greg Aler was born and raised in small-town Ohio, and after attending law school, he worked at one of the largest law firms in the world. Greg went on to build 3 multi-million-dollar companies before the age of 40, an elder care law firm, a financial services firm, a real estate company. He rethinks and rebuilds industries to help service the other 99% of America. Greg has his own TV, radio, and podcast show. It's called Expedition Retirement. And the only thing he loves more than cooking, scuba, boating, and laughing with friends on his back porch, is being with his wife, Fernanda, and 3 kiddos, Lily, Lola, and Louie. I guess Greg likes L's. Okay. Hey, we're happy to have Greg with us on Lean to the Left today to talk about financial planning for retirement, which is really an important topic, and I can tell you that from experience. Greg, on your website in which you promote your book, Fire Your Financial Advisor, 40 Years of Greed and Exploitation of the American Retiree, you say this: there are wolves everywhere. Shockingly, most retirees have no idea what is going on with their money, or worse, what they're being charged. Can you please explain?
First of all, thanks for having me, Bob. I really appreciate it, having me on your show today. And happy to explain. When I wrote Fire Your Financial Advisor, one of the things that I was shooting for was to culminate all of the experience I had. I was an estate planning attorney for almost a decade, and I got to see behind the scenes what was going on with a lot of financial plans because they would have us come in. Financial advisors would bring my firm in to help do some of the legal stuff. So I got to understand how they operated, how they worked, how they thought about people's money. Yeah. And when I started to dig in, I didn't like what I saw. I think when I wrote the book, it started off to be just a call to action on just highlighting some of the things people should focus on. And when I laid out the history, it was pretty devious what happened because Bob, if you think about it, in the 1980s, no one was really retiring, right? You had pensions still. 1978 was when the 401k was invented. So people really didn't have any idea what 401ks meant, what IRAs meant, and what a mutual fund was. And I don't know if some of your listeners remember, but there's only like 3 television channels, right? No internet, no access to information. So when you have all of the power and all of the services controlled with the information being withheld, they're along for the ride. Financial advisors were dictating the market, what they charged, what they sold, and retirees didn't have any other options and didn't know what they were doing. They just knew that, hey, I got my own account now. I've got this statement. I don't know what any of these things are, but don't worry. I know this guy or this gal. They go to church with me. And I think that's where it all started, Bob, is that the problem really manifested itself with a system when the pension started to die and got replaced by these accounts. They had no access to information to check for alternatives or even know what they were being sold.
Okay. I can see even today with the information that is available is still a very confusing thing. And I know in my own case, I've been working with this firm for many years. And I ask myself all the time, am I doing the right thing? I've given them a lot of authority, a lot of power. And I watch as things happen that I cannot control, like Putin attacking Ukraine and the market taking a huge dive, which has not come back from. And in my own case, I've lost like $70,000 from my meager retirement fund as a result.
Yeah, it's funny because if you really think about their model, and their model being the financial advisor model, their whole goal is to keep you confused and chasing a number, right? You need $1 million to retire. You need $750,000 to retire. You need 1.5 to retire. But what about the cost of living? What about inflation? And they have you so scared that they have you all of your nest egg in the market where it may be great if you retire in the right year or if you need the money in the right year. But what about the year that if you just retired in 2021 and you had your life savings and all of a sudden 25% of it's gone? These are the things we talk about all the time. And we always try to tell people you don't need to drive 90 miles an hour to go to the grocery store. You could drive 35 and you'll get there. And that's the message this book's trying to show you is there's more than one route in retirement, and you don't have to take on all this risk. A lot of times you don't need to take on anyways because you've already made it.
So your book makes the case that financial advisors have massively failed retirees. How is it that they've massively failed retirees?
First, I always want to say I'm sure there's some really nice financial advisors. I always feel like I have to give a disclaimer. I'm not saying these people are bad people.
Yeah.
But I do think they're part of a bad system. And that system has indoctrinated the Sunday commercials, the Whales, the Arrows, the Rocks, the Edelmans, the Fishers, the Raymonds, the Edwards. And all of them circle around this dynamic of being an investment-centric, basically, ideology for retirement, meaning everything's about selling and buying investments. And that's the only way that's the only thing your financial advisor does. And they may talk about other things, but at the end of the day, their entire world is about, hey, I got to sell you this investment. We got to do this. We have to do this with this stock or this mutual fund or this bond. And the way they failed retirees is they're missing the point. There's a lot of other things that have to happen in 2023 to successfully navigate retirement. The healthcare crisis, where we're seeing astronomical numbers, being an elder law attorney, of Alzheimer's and dementias and Parkinson's, and like addressing these catastrophic costs are void of almost every financial plan we've ever seen. Yeah. Then you have IRAs that are $1 million IRAs that have huge tax liabilities that are never discussed with clients. You've got to have the tax and the legal and the financial kind of triangle to work together to navigate retirement. Bob, to make it short and sweet, you have to do stuff. You actually have to have services. You can't just sell investments and call yourself a planner for retirement.
Now, many retirees have seen their IRAs and other retirement plans grow significantly. Why should they care about the fees that their financial advisor charges them to manage their retirement accounts if they're doing well in the market? If they feel like, okay, I'm doing okay, I don't really give a crap if this guy charges me whatever it is.
I think you're right. I think for the last 2010 or 11 to 2021, that was probably a lot of people's reaction. And what I can only tell them, Bob, is the power of compounding is a pretty powerful thing. If you're saying that you don't care what someone's charging, and let's say the average fee we see for a $500,000 IRA is around $10,000 all in a year. You get about a 1% fee of advisor fees and 1% for mutual fund investment fees. So you're paying $10,000 a year. Bob, that's $300,000 over a retirement. So I think it's hard for people to realize that this stuff can really add up. And that's the secret evil genius of their industry, is that they take just enough so that they get the response that you just said, it's not that much. I'm making some money. Why should I care? When the market goes backwards, though, Bob, guess what? They're still charging their 1%. So that's when people seem to be a little bit more in tune with what they're being charged from their advisor, when they end up adding 1% loss or adding 2% to a stock market loss. And for what? Again, they're just riding the markets that you could probably do for more or less free if you just bought some ETFs on Fidelity or Vanguard.
I often wonder whether or not it would be worthwhile choosing one of these companies that they claim to be a fiduciary, where they have to Fisher Investments, for example. They've got an ad all the time that says that they're a fiduciary, and so their responsibility is to do what's best for the client, not what's best for themselves. Is that bullshit? What the hell is that?
So let's just do some math, and we'll let the listeners decide, right? So if you work at Fisher, they're saying is if you do better, we do better.
Yeah.
And what they don't really say is, but if you do crappy, we still do pretty good. So
Uh,
Fisher Investments charges about 1.25%, if I recall, maybe 1.3
wow.
on their first half a million. So I guess my mind goes to, holy moly, that's a pretty big number. How could that be in the best interest of anyone?
Yeah.
And if you have $1 million, you're paying $13,500 to your Fisher guy, just to him or her, not for the investments they could be selling you. And I would challenge anyone to say the deep dark secret of the fiduciary lie. We always laugh when people say they're fiduciaries because they have no idea what it means. What's best interest mean? Like, I don't know. It's a subjective standard by the provider. At the end of the day, if you take a step back, Bob, and you say, you know what are they doing? I'm paying 1% or I'm paying 1.35% with Fisher. But here's the dynamic no one really wants to think about. If you spend your money, they take a pay cut. How can anyone ever operate in your best interest that aren't aligned with your interest? Because if you go out and buy a boat or you buy a CD because you want a conservative investment or put money in a money market or go on a vacation, if you spend those dollars, that Fisher advisor takes a pay cut. And you can't convince me that doesn't influence their commercials, their advice. Why are they always saying, what about the cost of inflation? What about the cost of living? You need $1 million to retire, because they want you to keep your money in their system so that they can keep charging 1.35%. And if you take money out of their system ever, they take a pay cut. How can that be a fiduciary standard? I just don't buy it.
Okay, I get that. So what are we supposed to do, people like me? I'm already retired a long time ago. And what are we supposed to do? We have to rely on help. I'm not a financial expert. Most of our listeners are probably not financial experts. We need help. We don't know what to do.
I think you go back to, Bob, I believe that you've ran a successful business, had a successful life, and most retirees have budgeted, they paid for their house, they paid for their kids' school, and they didn't have someone babysitting their money.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you should do it alone, but I guess my point being is you've been able to make smart decisions based on the value of services and cost. So the first thing everyone at home should do is just figure out to the penny what they're paying their advisor and then what they're paying for their investments. And if they can't figure it out, you can obviously, we have a website, getyourroadmap.com. We will do the calculation for you. But if you can do it on your own, you can go through your statements. If you know what percentage you're paying, figure out what you're paying. And then from there, you can sit there and say, okay, I'm paying $15,000. What else do I pay $15,000 for? Am I getting the value? And if the answer is, I don't think so, then start kicking tires, because what I believe a fair way to charge for services is a flat fee. So whether you use Golden Reserve or use anybody, if you have a flat fee system, that means no matter how many zeros are in your bank accounts, I'm charging the same for everyone based on the work I'm doing, not on the value of your estate. And to me, that's very fair. That just feels better. It feels better than an arbitrary 1%, because they always try to make an argument, if you have more money, we do more work, but that doesn't seem to ever be the case. It just seems to be they're just pushing the same buttons and it's spitting it out in these investments, and away they go, and they just get paid more. So I challenge everyone to think through that, of what they're paying, and then look for that flat fee. And then hopefully, if they get real lucky, they can find someone that includes legal services. We pay for our clients' legal services. We pay for our clients' tax returns. We build them a tax map. So if you can find all of those services versus a bunch of business cards they give you to call people, and then you got to go pay and deal with some other professionals, to me, that's a recipe for disaster. And when you can get everything under one roof, that's what I would look for, in addition to the flat fee.
So what did you say, Golden what?
Golden Reserve is my company, but there's other companies like us around. We're not the only people that have figured out some of this stuff. So if the listeners can find, goldenreserve.com outlines the system and the services. But if you're looking for people that are local, and I think there's a lot of other folks that are starting to think like we do, which is flat fees and more professional services under one roof, because that's what people need to actually have a retirement plan that works.
Yeah, way back when I first started working with this guy, not feeling confident in my own ability to manage my own portfolio, I pretty much gave him carte blanche to do whatever he thought was the right thing to do. Now I'm thinking that's probably a mistake.
It doesn't make you any different than anybody else. You shouldn't feel bad. At that time, that was probably the only option, right? There wasn't an internet, right? There wasn't an ability to find information. There wasn't MSNBC. There wasn't Fox Business. There wasn't CNN Business. Like, you didn't have outlets to find and grab more information to help you navigate financial stuff. It just wasn't available. So you just relied on your circle and your inner groupings of people, and they knew that. And that's why some of the fees and some of the mutual funds, and you've seen a lot of, in my book, I talk about the villain chapter of Edward Jones. They were sued for about $250 million by the Department of Labor and the Department of Justice over the last 15 years that no one talks about because of the egregious nature of some of their fees and their costs, because they went after the smaller cities across America.
Okay. How can retirees increase their own financial literacy, Greg?
It's a great question. I think you turn the corner, it's hard to find fact from fiction. There's so much white noise. There's so much stuff to click on.
Yeah.
But I do think starting to do some research and understanding the dynamics of what you want in retirement. Like, some people really are concerned about going in a nursing home. So you have to make sure that the planners that you talk to actually have tools for that. There's a lot of people that are tax driven. Hey, I've got $1 million in an IRA. I got to figure out how to take that out over my lifetime and not pay too much tax, but I want to get it out of there so my kids don't pay the tax. Okay, you got to make sure you have a CPA involved. So when you're going through and hopefully educating yourself, there's got to be anybody that's retired gets something in the mail probably every week from a dinner seminar or workshop.
Right.
And I always caution those because a lot of times they're just trying to sell you, a 1% fee or an annuity, but they could be a starting point as long as you have the discipline not to just hire the first one you go to, but to start educating yourself and getting a free meal. And then I think from there, just keep building on your questions, and hopefully you can find there's a lot of great literature. There's a lot of great retirement ready checklists. You see them all over the place. Every place has their own spiel and spin and brand with retirement workshops. But I think going out there is data now where you can start to find some good stuff.
Do you use those? Do you do those retirement dinner things where you send out a notice and invite people to come and blah, blah, blah?
I've done about everything over the last 15 years, from my estate planning shop to my financial services company. Seminars are still one of the probably more engaging ways of getting people to come in. You buy them a steak dinner, you try to get them to listen, you tell the story. And if you can, it can be a good lead source. We do a lot more radio and TV now, but we do the occasional seminar. We still do some seminars here and there across Ohio, the old throwbacks. But you do get a lot of plate lickers. There's people that just show up just for the food, that's for sure.
Plate lickers. Oh, man. I was thinking about becoming a plate licker.
You should.
But I always stay away from going to those things, mainly because I don't want to be bored. And secondly, I don't know. I don't know. I get suspicious. Anytime anybody offers me anything for free, there's never anything for free. And it just, yeah. So I always stay away from that. But you're saying that it's not a bad idea to go to them, right?
You get free dinner. I say make it a date night, right? If you grab another couple, you go, and worst case scenario, you may get some good information. You may like the person.
Yeah.
They're really good salesmen. Be careful. Yeah. Those things aren't cheap. Mailers are not cheap. Those are about $20,000 an event to get out and make happen. So those things don't pay for themselves.
20 grand per event?
Think about it. You got to mail out. Think about the cost of postage. Just do the math. Back your way into it. You get about a 1% response rate. All the costs of those events are all postage. So
it's
you're
the cost of the event too, right? You got to pay for all these dinners.
Depending on where you're going, if it's a fancy steak place, you may have a couple grand tops. Yeah. But for the most part, all of the cost is in the mailer.
Oh, okay.
Not the paper either. It's just postage. You got 45 cents or whatever. You times that by 10,000.
Sure. Yeah.
20,000. Because you get about a 1% answer rate.
Wow. That's a lot. Okay. You mentioned annuity a minute ago. is a fixed index. What is a fixed index annuity, and how can it
So
help?
sure. So like you have three types of annuities. You have a fixed, you have a fixed index, and you have a variable. The fixed annuity is just like it sounds. It's just like a CD, except for it's tax deferred. So I always tell people like when we're getting a lot of questions. Should I get an annuity or should I get a CD? And there's reasons to do both. But one of the things about a fixed annuity or a fixed index annuity, if you're there, is that it grows tax deferred. Meaning when you get a CD, you got to pay tax on it every year, and that adds up. Where with a fixed index annuity or fixed annuity, it grows tax deferred.
Okay.
It may not sound like a lot, but if you put $100,000 annuity in a 4 or 5% annuity, or in $100,000 in a CD, and over the course of retirement, at the end of the retirement, your annuity is going to beat your CD by about $100,000.
Okay.
And it's because of the power of compounding, because of that interest on interest is growing and getting bigger and bigger. You can grow your principal amount faster. But the fixed annuity is just like it sounds, Bob. It's 4% for 5 years, 4% for 7 years, 5% for 10 years, whatever the case may be. You get a fixed rate permanently for the duration of the product. The fixed index annuity is a newer product. Fixed annuity has been around for eons. Fixed index annuity is more of a hybrid product that says, you know what, you can mirror an index. And if the index goes up, you can participate in some of it. So instead of just having a fixed rate, if the stock market goes up 10%, maybe they say you can participate up to 7%. So your annuity will grow 7% that year. And then next year it resets again. But if the stock market goes down, the cool part about fixed index annuities is that you'll never lose any principal. So it'll have a 0% floor. So your fixed index annuity will never go backwards, which is what is the appeal. That's the main appeal to folks. Fixed index annuities and fixed annuities usually both have 10% access features. Every year, unlike a CD, you could take 10% out and not have a penalty. People like that. A lot of times they don't take it out and they don't use it, but it's just a nice psychological thing to have if you want some access to an investment. It's not locked away. But those are the fixed index annuities are the most popular investment in the country right now. I mean, everyone's because of the interest rates, right? The Fed keeps hiking the interest rates. People are getting a little bit more bang for their buck. So everyone's driving money into CDs, money markets, and annuities. It's been the most money has gone into annuities, and it breaks records month after month because of the popularity of the higher interest rates. And the Fed's talking about bumping one or two more times this year. So I can't see that going away, at least in 2023, because people are trying to lock it in. And who knows what the stock market's going to do? It's just like it always is. The stock market does what it does. Like you said, a war could happen, a war could not happen. Some kind of new invention can make all the difference. Sometimes it's not even has nothing to do with politics. Sometimes it's just the world and life. Like things just happen, and mortgage-backed crisis was a crazy thing. The .com bust in 2000. These are things that no one could have really predicted, but they happen.
Yeah. I just know one thing, and that is that during the course of my planning for retirement and then retirement, I had a goal, and I reached the goal, and then things happen. As soon as I seemed like I reached that goal, shit happens. And the last time I reached that goal, Putin decides to go ahead and attack Ukraine, and the market tanked, and I've never have recovered. So I'm not anywhere near my goal now. My goal is gone.
I think, Bob, it's a great point of like, when do you take the chips off the table? If you got to your goal, one of the things that I would say is, is making another 5 or 10% going to change your retirement? How about losing 30%? And you'd be like, yeah, I don't want to lose 30. That would screw up my retirement. But making 5, probably not. So then you could probably put more of your eggs in something like a fixed index annuity or a CD or something that you're just like, you know what, you made it. You don't need to make money to live. Why not stop driving 90 miles an hour?
Yeah, exactly. Got it. Okay. You threw out a suggested question in the material that you sent me. And one of them is, what is a retirement planner and why should retirees work with them instead of financial advisors? What the hell's the difference?
It's a good question. We get it all the time.
Well,
so
yeah,
in our vision,
you put it out there. Ask me.
Yeah, we get it all the time.
Sure.
So we think of retirement like a mountain. To make it easy for people to understand, obviously working saving,
Right.
going to the top of retirement mountain. We view that's where the financial advisors usually live, right? They're all about selling investments, trying to make your money grow as much as possible, returns. And then when you get to the top of the mountain, you're on the summit, you're looking around and saying, all right, how the heck do I get down? I got all these boulders. I got long-term care. I've got this tax liability for my IRA. I've got risks that I'm not adding any more money to this. So our vision is that financial advisors help you up the mountain. Retirement planners help you down. And they're two different sets of skills. They're two different sets of services. They're two separate ideologies and philosophies in terms of money and planning. And I think that is why we believe most people in retirement should have a retirement planner, not a financial advisor.
You consider yourself to be a retirement planner?
Absolutely. I made up the word.
You made up the word. Okay, folks, this guy is a retirement planner. He is not a financial advisor. We want to make that clear.
It's financial advisor is a dirty word around here. I have to get you fired if you call yourself a financial advisor.
Oh, yeah? All right. So what advice do you have for somebody who wants to fire their financial advisor? How do they go about doing that?
I want to make sure that they have a plan in place, right? Like before you do anything rash, make sure you have a place to land safely.
Yeah.
Worst thing to do is to make a rash decision and then be wandering around and miss opportunities or screw something up. So make sure you have that secondary guide lined up for you. But when you fire your financial advisor, some of the challenges is that it's usually a pretty good relationship. Financial advisors are usually really nice. They're in the business of managing relationships. So they're usually the life of the party. They're on the golf course. They're at the happy hours. They're at the coffees. And they go to your church or you've known them forever. So it's usually tough because it's emotional. It's personal, but it shouldn't be. So we want the mindset to be, listen, this is a business decision. As a business owner, we make vendor changes all the time. You're at a different point in your life. You need a different vendor. And I think that's the mindset that person should take. And then from there, they have two options. They can have the tough conversation and say, you know what, I'm moving on. I'm going to use a different advisor, and they can have that conversation, which is sometimes tough, right? If anyone's ever fired anyone, it's no fun. So having that face-to-face is tough, and I always encourage people when they have that conversation to have a statement memorized, which is, thank you for everything you've done, but we made a decision to go a different direction. And that way, no matter what they say, what do they do? What are they doing differently? Or where are you going? Or I can do that. Thank you very much for what you've done. I think we're going a different direction. And if you keep saying it over and over again, it'll just stop the follow-up questions. Because if you try to explain and justify your decision, it'll never work. People want to have people understand. No one ever understands why they're fired usually. And no one's going to feel better with you explaining it to them. And you're not going to probably explain it that well, and it's going to get lost in confusion, and there's going to make you unsure of yourself. If you've got to the point that you're ready to make a decision, just stick to your guns, thank them, be thoughtful, and move on. The alternative way of firing your financial advisor is you don't have to talk to them. You can literally just, whoever you choose, I know if you chose Golden Reserve or if you chose another financial company, they can literally go in. It's called an ACAT is the technical term, but you literally can just get their information and pull the money out of the accounts without that financial advisor doing anything. And at that point in time, they'll get notified that their money's leaving, so they'll definitely call you. But you can actually start facilitating leaving a system without even having a conversation. We always say it's your money. And there's this Stockholm syndrome with people's retirement and their financial advisor. They almost feel like they're guilty spending it. They don't understand. They don't want to leave it. And the financial advisor treats it like their money, not like yours, Bob. And it's just a weird dynamic, the psychology of retirement accounts that don't apply to anything else in life. But for some reason, our biggest asset, we turn the reins over and let someone do whatever they want with it, charge whatever they want. Bob, could you imagine going to the grocery store? You're going to the grocery store, you go to the teller, and they're like, hey, you know what? You don't have to pay. I'm just going to start taking groceries whenever I feel like it. So they're going to start taking some groceries. And you're like, oh, I really wanted that. Wait a second. They took that out as part of the bill. And then a week later, you see this teller in your house taking the Oreos out of your cabinet. You're like, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, no, you gave me permission to take money out of your stuff whenever I feel like it. And that's what the financial advisors do every quarter or month or or semi-annually. They're just taking money out of your accounts, and you don't know when and where and how much. And like that would never happen in any other aspect of our professional lives or retired lives. Yet that's how we have these systems set up to beat you and confuse you in retirement.
All right. Well, that's scary stuff. Greg, have you got any other advice that you'd like to throw out to our listeners?
I think just going back to the principle of you've worked so hard. I mean, I know I grew up in a house where my old man was a factory worker. My mom was a school teacher. Grandma was a bus driver. Grandpa was a meter man. And I know what it's like to have dads working second shift and mom saving change to pay for my basketball shoes. Like I know what they've done without to get there. And it's just not right how they have targeted the other 95%ers to charge all the fees. I just don't think that doesn't sit right with me. It's not how I grew up. And I just want everyone to, if they want to join the fight and fight back, read the book, Fire Your Financial Advisor, and help us share the stories and share the information. And that's the only way we're going to start getting change and get better deals for retirees.
Greg, where can people find your book?
Then go to fireyourfinancialadvisor.com.
Okay.
And all the information, you plug it in there, and you can get a copy of the book. Here's what it looks like. Okay. Fireyourfinancialadvisor.com. Or you can go to Amazon. It's on Amazon too. It's an Amazon bestseller. If you don't, I believe ours is a little cheaper if you go to fireyourfinancialadvisor.com, but they're pretty close. So if you'd rather just use Amazon because you have Prime, you're welcome to do that too.
Okay, cool. All right. Anything else before we sign off?
No, Bob. Appreciate the time, and obviously had a lot of fun talking with you today.
Hey, I enjoyed talking to you, my friend.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this Lean to the Left video and that you learned something as well. Please come back on a regular basis and check out our interviews with guests on topics that I hope you find interesting, entertaining, and enlightening. And you can check out the schedule of upcoming shows, guests, and topics at podcast.leantotheleft.net. You can also subscribe to our audio version there or to our video shows here at YouTube. And follow us on social media, Facebook at the Lean to the Left Podcast, Twitter at Lean to the Left 1, Instagram at BobGaddy_Lean to the Left, and TikTok at Lean to the Left. Our goal is to be informative and entertaining as we and our guests comment on the latest developments in the news and about the social issues that concern us all. This is Bob Gaddy signing off for Lean to the Left. Thanks for sharing your time with us.